everybody, my name is Victoria. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm doing the How to Adapt a Book Tag REDUX version by Ryan and Kristen from Seeking Stories. They created this tag because they have a passion for film and books, and if you love movies and film adaptations and thinking about how stories are constructed and adapted, you definitely need to check out their channel if you haven't done so already. They are fantastic people. Their content is top notch. This is actually the second version of this tag that they created. They created another version of this tag, but they decided that it was a little bit more in depth than it needed to be. Unfortunately, most of us are complete idiots as far as how do you adapt a book into a movie, and so they made a little bit of an easier version for us simpletons, so I appreciate that, being a simpleton myself. I will have their version of the tag down below. They talked about adapting The Way of Kings into a movie. Question number 1 of the tag is, which book most deserves an adaptation? So one of the more popular videos on my channel that I've made is my Wizard of Earthsea series review. And I don't particularly know why this video got so many views, but it's the most successful video on my channel. And so I thought it would be interesting to take Wizard of Earthsea for this. Also because it has quite a sordid adaptation history. It has actually been adapted 2 times, and both of those times fans did not receive those works well at all. I have not seen either of the adaptations myself, but I do understand there was going to be another adaptation, a new third revamp of this, and they were going to try to do it again. I think Fox was the studio that was going to do it. However, the pandemic hit, and I don't know what happened in regards to the process of filming. I kind of think it maybe got dropped by the wayside. I'm not sure. I tried to look into it. I couldn't find a lot of information. Because it is such a fantastic story, it's one of my favorite classic fantasy series, and it's very underrepresented in the genre, and it's fantastic. So I would love to see somebody do Wizard of Earthsea justice. Question number 2 is, which medium best suits this book? I'm gonna go with TV show for this because it is a 6-book series. It starts with A Wizard of Earthsea, and then we have The Tombs of Atuan, The Farthest Shore, and actually the first 3 are a contained trilogy in themselves. So you could actually do an adaptation, I think, just based on the first 3 books, without going into the last 3 books. However, I am a completionist and I would love to see the entire story done. But yeah, there's a lot of material there. It would take a long time. The rest of the series was actually published, I think 20 years after the first half of the series. So the second half of the series feels a lot different than the first half. The second half starts with Tahanu, and then we have a collection of short stories for the 5th book, which I think would be the most difficult thing to adapt in this, because how are you going to put the short stories in there? Maybe you would do a Witcher kind of thing and you would just start it with the short stories. I don't know. And then it concludes with The Other Wind. So obviously there's a lot of material there. I would think that you would have to do a TV show for this. Question number 3 is, what are you most excited about in this hypothetical adaptation? The dragons in this story are very interesting. They come more into play in the 3rd book. We don't really see them in the 1st and 2nd book too much, but they become a lot more important in the 3rd book. So I would love to see how they explain the world of the dragons. The dragons have a way of communicating with each other. There's a lot of culture around the dragons and their society, so I would really look forward to that part of the series. Also, I would love for an adaptation to go into the second half of the series. The second half of the series really expands the world in such a bigger way. So Earthsea, if you don't know, is actually a compilation of different islands. And in the first half of the trilogy, you know that the islands exist, but you don't explore a lot of them. And the second half of the series really delves into the background of the world. It delves into different cultures and different islands of the world, and I think it would be really important to show that if you're going to be true to the series. I think that the audience would really need to have a sense of how big this world really is. I would also be really excited just for a show with a classic fantasy feel. Other than the Wheel of Time, I know Grimdark is really popular right now. Earthsea's not grimdark at all. It's more of that essential classic fantasy feel. It's about characterization. I'd be really interested to see how they would develop the characters and just staying true to the book as much as possible. I think an adaptation of Earthsea would really appeal to people who like Wheel of Time, and for people who are excited about the Amazon adaptation of the Wheel of Time. I think Earthsea would be perfect for that crowd. Question number 4 is, which actors should portray the characters? This is a really interesting topic with Earthsea. So here's the thing about the past adaptations that have been done. So one of the adaptations was a Studio Ghibli movie, and I believe Miyazaki's son adapted Tales of Earthsea. And again, I haven't seen this version, but from what I've read about it, it deviates very far away from the actual story of Earthsea, and that was a big letdown for actual fans of the books. There was also a live action adaptation of this by the Sci-Fi Channel, which, as you may or may not know, doesn't often have the best quality of adaptations. And unfortunately, Earthsea fell into that category. Ursula K. Le Guin gave them permission to adapt her book. However, she wasn't super involved. They didn't have her really involved in the process of making the show, and she was very upset with some of the choices they made. The first and foremost problem she had was the casting and the whitewashing of the casting. Le Guin describes her characters in Earthsea as having red-brown skin, and to me, I interpreted that as maybe of Indian descent. So I actually looked for some Indian actors and actresses who I thought would maybe do it justice. And if you're going to adapt the whole series, you actually need a young Ged and an older Ged. Ged is really our main protagonist in this series. There's also Tenar, and we see her also from a younger child to an older woman. So you need a young version and an older version of these actors and actresses. So for young Ged, I picked Dev Patel, who you probably recognize. He was in Slumdog Millionaire, is the one that most people know him from. For older Ged, I was going to pick Kabir Bedi. I'm sorry if I butcher these names, they probably will. But this is an Indian actor, and when I saw his face, I just thought he would be the perfect older Ged wizard. He looks so wise and mature, and I think this would be the perfect person for that. For a young Tenar, I'm going to go with Aishwarya Rai Bachchan, and I'm so sorry, I probably just butchered that. But this actress you might recognize from Bride and Prejudice, which is a personal favorite adaptation of Pride and Prejudice of mine. It's a Bollywood adaptation of Pride and Prejudice, can't say that. And it's such a fun version, you guys. If you haven't watched it and you're a Pride and Prejudice fan, you should find this movie and watch it. Super fun. For an older version of Tenar, I had a really hard time finding an older Indian actress who would be known by a Western audience, but I found someone named Taboo. I didn't know about her before, and sorry if I said it wrong, but Taboo. She looks like she would be a perfect older Tenar. Question number 5 is, who should direct the adaptation? I'm terrible. I don't know a lot of producers and directors for film, not being a big film buff myself, but I'm gonna go with Peter Jackson because this is a classic fantasy and he did an amazing job with Lord of the Rings, as everybody knows, and I just want the same kind of justice to be done for Earthsea, so let's say Peter Jackson. Question number 6 is, which scene or scenes are you most excited about seeing in this adaptation? Well, I don't want to be too spoilery because I know a lot of people haven't read this whole series, and so if you haven't even read the first book, I don't even want to spoil anything there. It's not a commonly known plot and series. But like I was saying earlier, the third book goes a lot more into the dragon lore, and so I would really like to see how that would be done. I just love dragons. Also, just the final battle showdown scenes of the third book between our villain and our protagonist. I would love to see how they would do that. There's sort of a Shadowland kind of thing going on at the end, and I would love to see what that looks like. It would probably look a lot like Mordor, actually. Question number 7 is, what are you most nervous about with this potential adaptation? I think the 5th book would be really hard to throw in there because it is a compilation of short stories. I loved all the short stories, and it opens up the world in such an interesting way. And I think they're essential to put into the adaptation, but I don't know how you would do it. The only thing I could think of for how to put these into your adaptation would be maybe to do a mini series like after the main series. I don't know though. I don't know. Ryan and Kristen, you can give me some ideas. How do you put short stories into the main adaptation? Let me know. Question number 8 is, let's get real. Do you think this book has a shot at ever being adapted? I know that in September of 2019, it was still going to be adapted, but COVID, I think, just changed a lot of things for film production. So I have no idea if the production that they were planning is going forward. I really hope it is, but we probably won't see it for a while, I would assume. Le Guin passed away in 2018, and so I think we will see some more adaptations of her work posthumously, and I just hope that they would do it justice because they are fantastic works. So if they do make a really good Earthsea adaptation, it's going to be really sad that Ursula K. Le Guin wouldn't have been alive to see it. The books are awesome and they should be more popular. I'm sad that not as many people have read them. So go read Earthsea. This is my recommendation. I really enjoy the series. Question number 9 is, on that note, do you think there's a chance it will be a good adaptation? Yes, because I know that Ursula K. Le Guin had some bad experiences with the past adaptation, and I know that the person that she put it into their hands, I'm forgetting who that director is now, but I know that that director was really intent on doing a good job because they knew that in the past it has not been good at all. So I think if this adaptation ever gets made after COVID is over, I think it's going to be good. I hope it's going to be good. I think it will be because Le Guin had some bad experiences with the other adaptations. She did not like them. In fact, I have a quote of what she said about the Sci-Fi Channel one. She said, "My protagonist is Ged, a boy with red-brown skin. In the film, he's a petulant white kid. All they intended was to use the name Earthsea and some of the scenes from the books in a generic McMagic movie with a meaningless plot based on sex and violence." So that's how Le Guin felt about the adaptation that came out on the Sci-Fi Channel. And so she wouldn't just give permission to someone who I think she didn't think would do a good job after that experience. And I know that the director who was going to be taking it over was really going to treat it with respect, and they intended to do that. And so I have faith that if this ever gets made, it will be respected in the right way, and we'll just have to see if COVID ends and we can get that adaptation. And then question number 10, describe your ideal version of this adaptation. To me, it has a Lord of the Rings kind of feel. I think it just has to feel classic. Anything less than that is going to feel cheapened, which I think was the problem with the Sci-Fi Channel adaptation. It has to feel authentic. It has to be someone who's a fan of the books. When the fans are involved, it's going to be so much better. You have to know the subject material. I'm going to add an element to this tag. I know this isn't one of the questions, but I'm a music person and I need to put a music score in here. And since I really want a Lord of the Rings feel, I'm gonna assign Howard Shore to do the score for this, and I think that he would really be able to capture the characters and the feel of the show in his melodies. Thank you so much for the tag, Ryan and Kristen. This was so much fun to do, and it let me revisit Earthsea a little bit, and it had me thinking like a filmmaker. Not that I'm a filmmaker, but it was fun to pretend to be one. Let me know down in the comments below if you are familiar with Earthsea. Do you agree with my decisions? Do you disagree? Do you have some better ideas for an adaptation? Do you want to see this adapted? I would love to hear your thoughts. Please consider subscribing if you want to see more bookish content from me, and hit the bell icon so that you are notified every time I post. I post videos every Tuesday and Friday. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Keep reading great books, and until next time, bye-bye!